In this part of the video, I'm going to concentrate on creating the rest of the west side section, or this side section, as we had indicated that we wanted to do. For this, I'm going to need to look at page 139 to get my heights. If you recall, we are using the 20 PSE LL and the 30-foot width of building. So the first thing I see is if I look over in the B column, it says 14 feet, and that is where the rafter sits. So I'm going to go ahead and offset 14 feet from my floor slab. I can go ahead and extend my column up. Now there's different ways that this can set on here. We are going to do it similar to the typical detail that we saw on page 135. The 14 feet is where our column is going to stay like this. And then from there, our rafter is going to come off of this point here, and it's going to rise. Now, we have not determined what the slope of this rafter is. If I look back to the assignment on part 2, it says my roof slope is to be 1 to 12. If you don't recall what that means, it's going to go up 1 inch vertically for every 12 inches it goes horizontally. So I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to use my @ symbol, and I'm going to do 12 feet, comma, 1 foot. So I'm going to hit enter. And then once I get that done, I'm going to go ahead and extend that to my center point, because that's going to be the peak of my roof. Again, if I look back on page 139, it tells me that my rafter thickness is E, which is 14 inches. So I'm going to offset that line I just drew at 14 inches. Now I need to again put them on the correct layer. If I look back at the eave detail, you're going to see that basically these are going to connect. And this already does connect. So that is going to be my rafter. From there, I need to add my girts into the wall. If I look back at the assignment, it says the girt is to be 5 inches wide and centered in the wall height. Girts can be shaped differently depending on the manufacturer of the building. Typically, they are either a Z-shaped or a C-shaped girt. If I look in here at my detail, my girt is going to go to the outside because my column sits inside. Before I start drawing, I need to switch to my object layer so I don't have to keep matching properties. So I'm going to draw my girt as a C shape, but again, they have Z shapes and they have C shapes. So I'm going to start out with my line command, and I'm going to go 2 inches this way, and then I'm going to go 5 inches this way, and then I'm going to go back up 2 inches. And again, this is just kind of symbolic, so I'm going to offset those lines at 1/8 inch to show some thickness for that girt so it shows up. And close that off, close that off, and trim out the corners. Now, I'm going to go ahead and make this into a block so that I don't have all of these individual pieces. If you don't remember how to do that, if you go to Insert and you go to Create Block, it is going to bring up the block definition, and I'm going to type in girt, and I want my base point to be the bottom right hand corner, and I'm going to select my objects, and I'm going to say OK. So it said it wanted the girt to be centered in the wall. So I'm going to move my girt, and I'm going to pick the midpoint here, and I'm going to go to the midpoint of this wall because that's on the inside, and then I just need to move this to the outside. So now I've got my girt added in there. I'm going to come back down here to the bottom, and now I'm going to actually put my wall panel on. It says my wall sheeting is to be 2 inches thick. So I'm going to copy this line from the corner of my girt there to the corner of my girt there, and I am going to offset that 2 inches. I have my sheeting, and now I need to come down here and I need to show my base angle. If you look at the detail on 135, it kind of makes an irregular shape. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to first offset the edge of my concrete a small distance, so there is some separation in there. So I'm going to use 1/8 inch just so we can see it, especially when we do our enlarged. And again, I'm going to use the same thickness for this that I did for my girt. I'm going to use offset 1/8 inch again. And then you'll see that it comes down, and again our sheeting is going to come down probably about that distance. And again, this does not have to be exact, so I'm going to draw that, and then off of this I need to have my base angle come off of it. So again, I'm going to offset that bottom piece that I just did, the 1/8 inch, and offset it again 1/8 inch for the thickness. And now I can connect these two with my fillet, set it with the radius of 0, and then it's going to come about halfway in here, and again I'm going to offset it 1/8 inch. And I'm just going to close that off there. Now if you look at above the slab, we have this portion over here, but we also have a taller portion. So I'm just going to offset this about 1 inch. And now I'm going to offset that 1/8 inch. And I'm going to do my fillet again. And then we're going to come off at an angle, so I'm just going to kind of pick a point here. I'm going to turn my snaps off, and I'm going to pick a point kind of here, and I'm just going to come down at an angle, and then I'm going to use my offset again at 1/8 inch, and again use my fillet to join everything together properly. Next, I need to close off the end, so I'm just going to copy the end of my plate over a certain distance. I'm going to use my trim command to clean up the end of the base angle. At this point, you need to create another block for the base angle. Because of time limitations, I'm not going to do that, but you should do that on your drawing. We have our base angle, we have the end of our sheeting, we have our wall girt. Now we need to work on the top of our rigid frame. Now we want to go back and look at our detail and kind of see how everything is put together. Right here we have where our eave strut is going to go and where our rafter is. We know that our eave strut is the same height as our purlin. So I'm going to connect my panel to the top of my rafter. My purlins are going to sit on top of my rafter, and they are 8 inches high. So I'm going to offset the top of my rafter at 8 inches. Next, I'm going to connect the panel to the top of the purlin where my eave strut is going to sit. My eave strut sets right here at the end of my purlin line, and again I'm just going to create it by using my offset, and I'm going to do again the 1/8 inch dimensions. So I'm going to offset the top, the side, and the bottom, and I'm going to use my fillet to clean up the corners. And then it needs to have some vertical pieces to make the C shape. I'm going to offset that about 5 inches. And then I'm going to connect it at the top. I'm going to trim it as needed to create my eave strut. I'm going to offset it about 1 inch in each way so that I can create the C shape. Again, using 1/8 inch offset. And then I will clean up the detail. Then I need to do the same thing at the bottom of the eave strut. Now that I have the eave strut completed, I need to put in my purlins. Again, they are the same height as the eave strut, and they are supposed to be 3 foot on center maximum. So I have to figure out that spacing. I don't want to go any more than 3 foot, but I don't want to go a whole lot less than that because I don't want to have too many purlins, which is going to raise the cost of my project. So typically what I do is I kind of just look at it to see how many I think I can come up with based on the distances that I have. And we want to have one that's fairly close to the ridge, but not directly on the ridge. I want it to be at least probably about 1 foot or so off of that. So typically what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 3 feet across, maybe a little bit less, probably 2'6". And I'm just going to use my offset. I'm going to draw a line from the top of my eave strut, offset that 3 feet, and then I will add another purlin closer to my ridge point. I'm going to offset my center ridge by 1 foot to get my purlin closer to that ridge. So my purlin is basically the same thing as my eave strut. So I'm just going to copy that to those center points. I need to offset the back side of it by 1/8 inch to get it completed. And then I will continue to copy it to the rest of my locations. And then I will delete my construction lines that I created to place my purlins. The next thing I need to do is to place my roof sheeting. If I look back at my program information, it is at 1.5 inches. I need to go clean up the end to where it meets the ridge on the center point. It needs to come out past my edge of my building. So I'm going to zoom in there and take a look at that. and I want it to come out at least even with my wall panel, but my wall panel doesn't go all the way up. So I'm going to draw a line across here, and then I'm going to draw a line from the edge of my wall panel up to connect my roof panel. And then I'm going to join the corners here. According to the instructions, we have a 7" by 7" rectangular gutter. If you look in the book, your gutter has a different configuration to it. Again, they're all different depending on manufacturers, but for ours, we're going to keep it very simplistic and just draw a 7" by 7" gutter. I'm going to use my line command. I'm going to come down 7 inches. I'm going to go to the left 7 inches, and then I'm going to go back up 7 inches. And I'm going to use my offset to offset it again 1/8 inch to each side, and close off the top pieces. And clean up my corners, and then I should create a block of my gutter. I did not have you create a block of the eave strut or the purlin, but you need to do that. The next thing is we need to move the gutter into place. It sits down below the edge of the roof and it fits tight to the wall panel. And then we have to create the flashing that goes between the roof panel and down into the gutter. So again, I'm going to come in and create my flashing. I'm going to extend my lines from the edge of my gutter, and then I'm going to offset the vertical line 1/8 inch. And then I'm going to connect those together to form my flashing. It needs to have a piece that comes down a certain distance so that water cannot get back up in through there. And so I'm just going to trim it off right there. And get rid of the line I drew there. Again, there would be some other pieces in there, but for our purposes, this is all that we need. So as a review, we have completed the base, we've completed the wall girt, and now we've completed the top of our rigid frame, including our gutter. In the next video, we will cover the enlarged eave strut detail.